If you're wondering about Hornady's new CX monolithic solid copper hunting bullet, you need to check out this video. Gavin here from ultimatereloader.com. I'm back with Guy Miner. Thank you, Guy, for joining us.
Absolutely.
We are here to talk about Hornady CX bullets. These were released in the last year or so. This is Hornady's solid copper monolithic tipped hunting bullet. These things are really popular, and we could not wait to get our hands on them. We've got one of the bullets. This is the 7mm 150 grain Hornady CX bullets. Now, Guy, why are people looking towards solid copper bullets?
Well, there's several reasons to use them for hunting. One, of course, is legality. There's California has gone to lead-free bullets for hunting, and so you have to use that. So now more and more companies are releasing their version of an all-copper or copper alloy bullet. They also have been found to perform really well on game, particularly big game where you might need a lot of penetration. And then something that a lot of us hunters enjoy is we like a good meal, good steak, and the copper bullets don't normally leave any fragments. If they do leave fragments, they're not lead fragments. You don't have that lead in your food.
Yes.
So that's another good reason.
Yeah, and the CX bullet is really the evolution of a bullet that's going to be familiar to a lot of you hunters out there, the GMX.
Right. Hornady's had that for some time now, a decade or so, I think, and it's established a good track record, and it was so cool hearing Hornady talk about how they decided to take the GMX and make it better, make a better version of it.
We had a tech deep dive with their technical team, and we got to hear about GMX as a baseline. So GMX is very similar. It's got a tip, so the tip would be pre-heat shield, so it's going to be something like you'd find on AMAX bullets in terms of composition. And then there's also these cannular grooves, which are required for one reason, to keep pressures in check, right? Your bearing surface is going to be a critical factor. The bullets do not obturate nearly as well as something with a lead core, so you have to be very, very careful with pressure.
Yes, indeed.
And what we learned was they did quite a bit of research and experimentation and data gathering to get those cannular grooves just right.
Right.
Just right to perform the purpose they have of keeping pressures in check, but then also they made significant enhancements on the aerodynamics of the bullet, the ballistic coefficient.
To keep that drag low.
Yep.
Yeah.
The other big improvement that they made and different phenomena that they really discovered with their radar, their Doppler radar, was just like the old AMAX bullets, they were seeing the tips of the bullets start to melt mid-flight, which screws up the ballistic coefficient.
Yep.
And then you get unpredictable behavior. So part of the CX lineup change was to adopt the heat shield technology that you'll find on like ELDM on the match side or ELDX on the hunting side.
Right.
And what did this do? Well, it increases the performance, but it also increases the predictability of the ballistics, which means you will find these Hornady CX bullets in the 4DOF calculators. And we'll actually have some data to share a little bit later in this video for this specific load that you worked up. So what else did we miss here? Yeah, it's the same copper zinc alloy as GMX. And basically, if you like GMX, you could consider this a better version.
Gonna like it more.
Yes, exactly. So why don't we next take a look at the load data that Guy worked up. So when you're thinking about loads, where do you like to start?
Well, it's a Magnum. So
That's right.
I want it to go fast. I don't buy a Magnum for low velocity.
Yes.
Okay, so this is, I want it to go fast. I want it to have a flat trajectory. Of course, I want the accuracy.
Yep.
And I want to match the bullet to the game that I'm after.
Yep.
If I'm hunting deer, I usually prefer a faster expanding bullet. And if I'm hunting elk or bear, I'm looking for something that's going to have the emphasis on, it's going to expand, but it's going to have the emphasis on penetration.
You want to get through that skull if you're shooting a bear in the head, right? For instance, which is a very real defensive scenario in Alaska.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
But on a deer, you don't want it to just go all the way through and not do the kind of damage you're going to need to.
Right. I wanted to rapid expansion in there and cause a lot of damage in the boiler room. Take care of the heart and the lungs and get a good quick kill that way.
And what we have here is a Ruger #1. Now, is this your only 7mm? Do you have multiple 7s?
It is now. It's one of about 4 I've owned over the years. Yeah,
Gotcha.
I've played with the 7 mag for quite a while now, and this one is by far my favorite. It's beautiful and it shoots well, and I'm happy with it.
Love it. Yeah, I know a lot of people that hunt with the 7mm Rem Mag. It's got a really, I think, good blend, and I've shot a few. You know, a good blend of really good ballistics and stopping power, but not quite the abusive recoil that you'll get with a 300 Win Mag.
Exactly. That's one of the reasons why I switched from 300 Win Mag to 7mm Remington Magnum, oh gosh, 25 years ago or so, because I just wasn't shooting the 300 as well as I would like to. It felt like it kept beating me up.
Yes.
And in a sporter weight rifle, 8 pounds or so, I can handle the 30-06 and a 7 mag just fine.
And you're not typically shooting braked either for these,
No.
or suppressed yet. We'll get to that. Okay, so let's break down the load. Of course, we've got the Hornady 150 grain 7mm CX bullet. They've got a few different weights. In fact, if you click on that first link in the video description, we'll have all of the additional supporting data, a link to the Hornady CX landing page, and so on and so forth. But you had put together that load this last summer that was the 150 ELDX, is that right?
It is, and we got some remarkable velocity with it and good accuracy, and I think that would be an absolutely terrific mule deer load.
Yes, when you don't need quite as much penetration capability. New Winchester cases, CCI 250 large rifle Magnum. Of course, with a 7 Rem Mag, you need a Magnum primer to get that powder charge lit up.
You do. There's a fair chunk of powder in there, and I like to use the slow burning powders in the Magnum rifles to get as much velocity as I can, and get. You also get a really a lot of fill in your case. It fills it up to 95, 100%, maybe even into a compressed load.
Yeah.
And that's all fine. It works really good. And
yes.
We talked before on that other article about the ELDX, about how much the SD and the extreme spread started going down the closer we got up to a maximum load.
Yeah,
that was pretty sweet.
With the hunting load, you also have the inclination of the rifle, and that can influence where the powder sits, which can slightly influence your velocity. So for a hunting load, I love that idea of being right near 100% or even slightly compressed. It's going to be about as consistent as you can get. And that's how the cartridges were designed, right?
Yeah, and when it came to loading the CX, I found out that they're a really tough bullet, and you cannot use the same max load that you can for a traditional cup and core type bullet. I was several grains hotter, several grains bigger with the ELDX last year than I was able to safely do with our CX this year.
Yeah. And we've learned a couple things from our research into copper bullets that explain why that's the case, right? These cannulars are cut to keep pressures in check. Copper bullets compared to cup and core lead bullets are longer, can have much longer bearing surface. Longer bearing surface means more pressure. Depending on what your rifle's chamber is cut to and what those dimensions are, things can get out of hand real quick. And I've seen that with other ammo that I've been working with recently.
They don't compress down into the bore very well. They're a very tough bullet. Yeah, there were a lot of things that led me to stop at 73 grains.
Yes.
And a little over 3,200 feet per second.
Nice.
Which is just fine.
And that's 8133. So if you missed it, we just did a tested story on IMR Enduron. 8133. It has this unique combination of the copper fouling reduction agents and a temperature stable formulation, which for hunting, what a good deal. We've got
fantastic.
solid copper bullets. We need that copper fouling eraser, right?
We do. We do. Yeah.
Yep. So 73 grains, and that yielded 3217. And if I remember correctly, weren't you up around 3,300?
Close to it. I was at 33 or 3282.
Okay.
I think was our with the ELDX last summer.
So you got you know, within about 60 feet per second-ish, 60, 70 feet per second of what you got with the lead core bullet.
Right, and I started seeing some pressure signs, and so I said, okay, we're done. I was not going to push it any harder.
Cool. So that's the load data. Let's next take a look at the exterior ballistics. So we mentioned earlier that because these bullets are more consistent compared to GMX, they're now supported in 4DOF, and so what I did was to go to the Hornady website where you can use this 4DOF calculator for free. You can use the drop-down menu to select the bullet. You enter all of the parameters, including the muzzle velocity, and this is what we came up with. Now, one important factor here is the twist rate, and this rifle has a 1 in 9.5. Is that correct?
Exact, and that.
Yeah.
7mm Remington Magnums have been made with several different twist rates over the years from the factories, but the 195 is pretty standard. You'll find that in a lot of rifles or something very close to it, and it does just fine with the majority of traditional hunting bullets in 7mm.
Yep. So we have standard atmospherics, a zero range of 300 yards, which is how you sighted in the rifle.
Right. When I hunt open country, I like that 300-yard zero with a flat shooting rifle like the 7 mag 25-06 stuff like that. If it's not that open a country, I'll bring that zero range back in. But yeah, if I'm out in Wyoming for pronghorn or mule deer and I might be shooting a good long range, I like that long distance zero.
And I know what you all are thinking right now. I don't see a scope on that rifle. What exactly is he talking about? But you had it on there, didn't you?
I did have a scope on it. We took it off for today for the gel test.
That's right. That's a little bit easier when you don't have to worry about the offset and whatnot. So when you hit calculate, you get this table. And there's a lot more factors that you can select, the different parameters, and you'll have more and more columns that have the data. So let's punch in on this bottom table here. And one thing that I want to note is this far right column is really handy. This is the gyro factor. And in talking with Hornady about this, you're going to want to see a value of 1.2 or greater. And you can see here we're starting at 1.24, so that's good. We got a little headroom. But then look what happens as we go up in 100-yard increments. The number gets higher. That means it's more gyroscopically stable downrange. And I know you armchair physicists at home are thinking, why would that be? I was wondering the same thing. And what happens is the spin of the bullet does not decay very fast, right? Because there's not a whole lot of air friction around rotation. It's mostly around its penetration through the air. So you've got a rapid decay of velocity of the bullet in a linear fashion while it's rotating practically as fast as it was when it came out the muzzle. And that means it's basically overspun and so therefore becomes more stable downrange. Kind of weird.
I'll take your word for it.
But what you were thinking about specifically was this maximum number. We put in 600 as kind of the maximum range for this data. Tell us why.
Sure. The big reason for that was that's when our velocity for this load drops down to 2,000 feet per second. 2,078 according to 4DOF. And that 2,000 foot per second level is what is necessary, according to Hornady, to have these reliably expand. And so once you drop down below that, this bullet's not going to open up. It's not going to do as good a job of killing your game. So that's why I said 600's enough. Plus, I'm not going to shoot anything past there anyway.
So I know what you're wondering. We've got these gel blocks here. That's really one of the main parts of this story. We wanted to see exactly how these bullets were going to perform at two different velocities. So why don't we do that next? So let's talk about this setup. We've done this quite a few times now. We're kind of getting our whole system dialed in.
Yeah, we are. It's going smoother than it used to, and
Yes.
we're getting some interesting results.
So what we've got here are recycled gel blocks, except this guy. This was a brand new one from Clear Ballistics. Thank you, Clear Ballistics, for your help supporting the channel. We've got an Edgertronic SC2 Plus high-speed camera. This is a camera capable of capturing HD footage at 4,456 frames per second, which gives you a lot of really interesting information. And we have two loads here, right? You downloaded to 2,800 feet per second. Is that what it was?
Right.
Simulating a 200-yard shot.
Roughly, yep.
Okay, and then we've got the muzzle velocity of 32 and change.
Yes.
Okay, so we've got 2 different clips. We did this twice. This is kind of an involved process, actually. I think we had 3 or 4 cameras going here. You line up for the shot, do a test target to make sure that you're going to hit where you want to hit, because these gel blocks are expensive and they take a lot of time to recycle. And once you do the test shot, you also validate that your audio trigger works. The way it works is the crack of the bullet and the muzzle blast is recorded by a microphone. The camera says, okay, we're going to start recording. But we can go back in time because it's maintaining a buffer of frames. It's very, very important. Once that crack is heard, that you have that ability to go back in time and then record a number of seconds. And then we go to the computer, make sure everything looks good, take out that chunk. And this is what we got. So we're going to watch this 2,800 foot per second footage here first. Boom. You can see that sonoluminescence as things collapse in. It's kind of like a dieseling effect. A lot of compression, goes to very high heat, and the gases just completely explode in there. And we got almost 3 gel blocks worth of penetration.
That was 30.5 inches of penetration.
Wow. Okay, so let's back this up a little bit. We're going to go to this point and kind of go frame by frame. So there we go. The first frame is still expanding, and then that's kind of the maximum expansion there. Quite an impressive wound channel.
It is.
And if we continue to go forward, boom, we see the bullet right there. You see that? It's like practically bouncing off the
third block.
Exactly, right at that interface there.
Interesting.
I've been wondering in terms of physics if there's some sort of, not surface tension, but an extra bit of energy to go through a boundary layer.
Something.
Yeah, something there, because that seems
it literally
to have an effect.
bounces off.
Yeah. And okay, so make note here of the sort of undulation of the gel, because when we go to the next clip, let's do that now. So the next clip is full velocity, 3,200 and change. Here we go. Boom. Look at that gel. It's kind of noticeably more violent, the whole effect.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
We're all the way into the 3rd gel block with a 150 grain solid copper projectile.
At 33 inches of penetration.
That's pretty brutal. So you can see at 200 yards, you're getting almost the same performance that you get here, but this wound channel is a bit more broad and probably a bit larger in volume, I would say.
Yeah, there's a 400 foot per second difference between the 2 of them. Mm-hmm. And you can see it right there on the impact. I could see it with my naked eye when I shot. And it was like, wow. You know, both of them were impressive.
Yep.
And that 3,200 foot per second one was like, my goodness, that's a lot of striking energy. And interesting, people say, well, would you be shooting an animal that close? Yeah, mm-hmm. You might be. Suppose you're hunting bear, you know, and you're baited stand, and there's your bear at 15 yards.
Yep.
Is your bullet going to hang together, not explode? Is it going to hang together and penetrate and take care of that animal?
Yep, absolutely. And with this bullet, you know, we see 2 pieces of evidence here, 2,800 and 3,200. The next step I'd like to do would be to see what 2,000 looks like.
See if we can load it down.
Yeah, that minimum recommended velocity that Hornady prescribes for these bullets. Kind of interesting stuff. Okay, so why don't we next get these bullets out? We'll see what kind of weight retention we have and what kind of expansion.
Yeah.
Well, that was pretty interesting. I don't know if we've ever had results quite this close.
No, those bullets performed very similarly, even with 400 foot per second difference.
400 feet per second, right?
Yep.
Remember, 1/2 mv squared. That velocity up in the higher velocity ranges means a lot, actually, in terms of energy. Let's look at the numbers. So after we got the bullets cut out of the gel blocks, we did a couple things. We had to meticulously pick all of the gel out of the folded back petals. That's kind of the pain in the neck process. I might use heat next time and just try and drip it out as liquid. I don't know. But from that, we were able to get our weight and we were able to get our expanded diameter. So we just took a reading with some calipers across kind of the widest spot of the petals, and look at how close these were. One of them, the 2,800 foot per second one had 0.539 inches, and then we had 0.596 at 3,200 feet per second. So we had a net expansion of 89.9, call it 90%, on the lower velocity, and 109.9, call it 110%, on the higher velocity. Both are going to do some really lethal damage to that animal.
Yeah, and I'd expect the higher impact speed to expand more, and it did.
We took a sample bullet, we weighed it. It weighed 150.38 grains on the A&D FX 120i. These are available from Cambridge Environmental. This is a balance, it's not a scale, actually. It's very fast and it's very accurate. It's accurate down to 2/100ths of a grain. That's right, and 1 grain is 1/7,000th of a pound. That is sensitive. And what we had was final weights of 150.18 at 2,800 feet per second and 149.14 at 3,200 feet per second.
They didn't lose much weight.
No, we're talking about 99.8 and 99.2% weight retention.
Yep.
If we had 100% weight retention, it would weigh the same before and after. And of course, we don't know what these specific samples weighed beforehand. Maybe that'll be our next level of meticulosity, is to weigh every single bullet before we do the test, so we get, down to those extra digits of precision. But you get the point. With a lot of bullets, you're going to be down in the 80s of percent.
Or less.
Or less weight retention, yeah. Sometimes you'll get a separation. You'll get, all sorts of problems and issues. And then the penetration depth. We had 30.5 inches, which almost went into that third block with the lower velocity.
It tried.
It did. And 33 inches, which just went about an inch or two into the last block. It was pretty easy to remove, which was nice. So, and then we have the kind of the peak cavity expansion here over on the side that you can see. Pretty similar still. I mean, it's a little bit more in magnitude, I would say, at the higher velocity, but not a whole lot.
Yeah, and looking in the second block there on that higher velocity one, you can definitely see it's a wider wound channel in that block than the slower velocity. But either way, that looks like a pretty effective bullet to me.
Yep, definitely. Okay, so in conclusion, the CX is an evolution and an improvement of the GMX line of bullets. And in fact, again, if you click on that first link in the video description, we'll have the different bullets that are currently available here in 2022 from Hornady in the CX lineup. In a lot of calibers, you can have multiple weights to choose from.
Yeah, and they make these things all the way from 6mm up to 375. So that's a wide range.
Yep, definitely a comprehensive collection of bullets. You're going to want 2,000 feet per second, in excess of 2,000 feet per second to get reliable expansion. Again, if we had a load that would work down safely at that velocity, we would try it. Maybe we still will in a follow-up video. It'd be kind of cool to have more of these CX videos with ballistics gel.
Absolutely. I've got a couple of the rifles that I'd love to try them in.
Well, if you'd like to try them, then maybe I'll send you home with a turkey cooker and you can melt all the gel down.
Okay.
How does that sound?
I'm fine with that.
Nice, entertaining evening of
melting gel.
Ballistics gel recycling. What could be better, right? We're seeing that these bullets penetrate deeper compared to lead. And again, if you've got a very tough animal, an elk with really dense bones, if you have a moose or any of these really large animals where you really want to be able to punch a little bit deeper, you don't care maybe quite as much about the shock and that high velocity effect, this is going to be a good choice. Yeah,
you want the penetration on some of these big boned animals, or maybe you have, maybe the only shot you've got is at a kind of a raking angle, as old Elmer Keith would say, a raking shot, and you got to go through a lot of animal to get to the vitals. This is the kind of bullet that does that.
Yep, and you don't have to worry about lead in the meat, which is another, side benefit.
It is. It isn't something I've worried a lot about, but it's something I'm hearing more and more about from other hunters. I started thinking, yeah, that makes sense. And when I recover my bullet and it's only 70% still there, well, where's the rest of that? Is that in my food?
It does make you wonder. Here's what we would like to know is, are you shooting Hornady CX bullets? Are you hunting with Hornady CX loaded ammunition? What are you hunting? What bullets are you using? What load components are you using? And what rifle are you shooting it in? Drop a comment and we'll start a discussion. Are there other CX stories or other related content that you'd like to see? Drop a comment and we'll put that in the suggestion box. Thanks again, Guy, for joining us.
Absolutely. Well, got to shoot one of my favorite rifles. I like that.
Cool. That concludes this video, and that means it's time to wrap it up. I hope you liked this video. If you did, please give it a big thumbs up. Also, make your voice heard. If you have something to say, please drop a comment. Make sure you're subscribed with notifications because you're not going to want to miss the awesome content that is coming up. And finally, flex your reloading pride. You could look great in one of these t-shirts. We've got multiple designs at the Ultimate Reloader store. I'll see you later because I'm off to go shooting.